If you're a facilities manager at a warehouse and your HVAC system goes down, it can turn up the heat, literally. But don't sweat it, Granger has you covered. Granger offers over 1 million industrial-grade products for all your operations, including warehouse HVAC maintenance. And even better, they offer access to experts and fast delivery, so you and your warehouse can both keep your cool. Call 1-800-GRANGER, click Granger.com, or just stop by. Granger, for the ones who get it done.
Hello and welcome to Love Samantha Lee, the More Than Just Pretty podcast. I'm your host, Samantha Lee, and here we explore love, life, spirituality, and relationships through the lens of real beauty, the kind that begins the moment you decide to be unapologetically yourself. Join us as we dive into heartfelt discussions that challenge, inspire, and connect us. Are you ready to embrace your true self? Let's begin. What's up, family? It's your girl. And I'm here, you guys, with this new podcast, and I'm calling it Even If He Doesn't. Even If He Doesn't. And y'all, it comes down to really a situation where I think we all face in our lives, or we have a desired outcome. We have a desired outcome. We're praying to God about a specific thing, and we want this specific thing to happen. And when we pray for it to happen, like some of you guys that may be watching this or maybe in this moment with me, is that there was somebody that was in your life that you loved and that you cared about. Let's say they got ill. Something happened to them. And you're praying for God to heal them. You're praying for God to take them from their circumstances. You're praying. And that person transitions. And you're like, God, wait, hold up, wait. Or you're praying for the marriage to work. And you're trying and you're praying and you're trying and you're praying. You're getting closer to God. You're doing everything that you think you're supposed to do. And yet that situation falls through. The spouse that you're with or you decide to file. The situation you've been praying to rectify falls through. Or maybe you were praying for that job and you're like, God, I really need this. I know this is going to be great, blah, blah, blah. This will be perfect. It's going to be good for my schedule, blah, blah, blah. You're just so excited and you don't get the job. You don't get into the school. You don't pass the test. There's so many different things that happens in our lives, and we pray for our desired outcome. And when God doesn't show up or God doesn't do what we want him to do or what we asked him to do because we feel like we are so wise, we know what's best for us. We feel like we know what's best for us. I had to take a deep breath there because how many times have I felt like I know what's best? And then a couple years later, I look back and I'm like, God, thank you for not letting that happen because that would have been terrible. That would have been horrible if I got what I wanted in that season. And so today I call this Even If He Doesn't, because I know last week I talked about Daniel and the 3 Hebrew boys, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And it's funny because on my devotional, I'm reading the Bible through for the second time. And in Daniel, it just happened to pop up. I just started Daniel this week. And a part of what was going on in that chapter, which I'm in Daniel. Let me get it out because my phone be acting up. I'm in Daniel 3. And I go down to verse 16. And in this part of the chapter, which I touched on a little bit last week, King Nebuchadnezzar has set out a decree. He built this big statue. It says the statue was 90 feet tall and 9 feet wide. He has everybody from that part of the world, all races and nations and languages, that whenever they hear a musical instrument, they are to bow to the ground and to worship King Nebuchadnezzar's gold statue. Anyone who refuses to obey will immediately be thrown into a blazing furnace. Now, y'all, what you got to understand about this is context. Just in Daniel 2, right? Daniel and the 3 Hebrew boys all went to where King Nebuchadnezzar was at. So they were Jews that were taken from their original land. They were instructed to take the best of the Jews, right? And so they got these 4 young men, and they brought them over to serve in the kingdom and to train, just the best of the best, right? And so Daniel, the three Hebrew boys are there. And just in the last chapter, chapter 2, Daniel interprets a dream that no one, and I mean no one in the kingdom could interpret. And King Nebuchadnezzar ends the chapter saying, you must serve the real God. Just the beginning of Daniel 3, now he done built a statue and want people to worship him. Just that quickly, we can lose sight of God, just that quick. God answers your prayer, bam, just that quick. You build a statue and you want people to worship you when you couldn't interpret your dream in Daniel 2, but that's besides the point. So here we are in Daniel 3, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, the astrologers that were still alive, because in Daniel 2, he was trying to take them all out. But they're going back to the king and saying, hey, king, there's some Jews that aren't worshiping your statue. And he's like, wait, hold up. What do you mean they're not worshiping my statue? This is crazy. This is wow. How are they not worshiping me? This doesn't make any logical sense. And so he's like, okay, they need to be brought before me. I'm really upset. He says, is it true? Y'all not worshiping my statue? And he's like, I'll give you one more chance to worship my statue. But if you refuse, you going into this fiery furnace, because that's been my order. That's what I'm saying. And in verse 16, they're facing death, family. They're facing not just a regular death, a brutal death. And they're saying, they're about to say this. We do not need to defend ourselves before you. Oh, they talking to the king. They said, listen, we don't even need to defend ourselves before you. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God whom we serve is able to save us. He will rescue us from your power, your majesty. Verse 18. But even if he doesn't, but even if he doesn't save our lives, even if he doesn't show up, even if he doesn't give me the job, even if the marriage doesn't work, even if the person that I wanted to live ends up passing away, even if he doesn't come through the way I wanted him to, even if he doesn't, y'all, we need to have an even if he doesn't type of faith. Even if it doesn't happen the way I wanted it to, even if it doesn't happen as fast as I wanted it to, but even if he doesn't, we want to make it clear to you, your majesty, that we will never, and I mean never, serve your gods or worship the gold statue you have set up.
If you're a facilities manager at a warehouse and your HVAC system goes down, it can turn up the heat, literally. But don't sweat it, Granger has you covered. Granger offers over 1 million industrial-grade products for all your operations, including warehouse HVAC maintenance. And even better, they offer access to experts and fast delivery, so you and your warehouse can both keep your cool. Call 1-800-GRANGER, click Granger.com, or just stop by. Granger, for the ones who get it done.
They don't know if God's going to show up. They don't know if they're going to be alive tomorrow. They have no idea. They know that they just irritated the heck out of a king, and he's obviously fragile, okay? Because he's putting out these decrees for people to die off of his ego. It seemed like in every chapter. Okay, people facing their lives being lost because of something egotistical he done come up with. So we're dealing with a fragile ego king, and they just irritated him. So they already know, because he's moving off of selfish ambition and he's moving off of earthly wisdom. There's heavenly wisdom and there's earthly wisdom. Earthly wisdom is when it's about you, it's about ego, it's about selfish ambition, it's envious, okay? That's earthly ambition. So he's run off of earthly, worldly ambition, and we know that that leads to death. That's what it says in Proverbs. I think it's Proverbs. But the way that seems right to a man, that road leads to death. That's what it says. That's the book. So he is running amok, right? And they're watching him. They are fearful. Can you imagine going before a king who at that point was like a demigod to them? They're going before a king, and they know that he has all the power in the world to take their lives. And y'all, human instinct is to preserve our lives, is to protect our lives. And they are saying, listen, I know what you can do to us, but our allegiance to our God is greater than appeasing a king. We're not just going to do it in the moment and ask God for forgiveness later. We're going to stand firm in our convictions. And if we lose our lives based upon our convictions, so be it. Y'all, at that moment, God did not save them from the fiery furnace. He allowed them to go into a fiery furnace that was turned up 7 times hotter than it usually is. And the people that threw them, because they had the strongest guards, bind them up and throw them in there, those guards end up dying by throwing them into the flames. So they sitting in there, and the king notices that these 3 Hebrew boys there's a 4th one in there, and my pastor says it is Christophany, is Christ appearing in the Old Testament before he's born in the New Testament. But they're in there, they see 4 people in there, and he immediately decides to take them back out or ask them to walk out. And when they get out, they don't even smell like smoke. It's crazy. This is the part, and I know I went on this last week, but the whole point of me even bringing this back up, family, is that the other day I was thinking about a situation in my life, and I was really like, sometimes, guys, you know how you get into a place and you're trying to make things happen and you're trying to make things work, and maybe like this is an easy example, it's off the top of my head, is let's say you're single, right? And there's people around you. There might be people that you are currently seeing. You see people, you're interested in them, you date them, whatever the case may be, but you're not really, that this ain't really your person. Like deep down inside, you're like, I know this ain't really for me. And what people will do a lot of the time is because they're lonely, or because they just want someone around, or they want other needs met. They'll keep that person around, even though deep down inside they know that this is not where they're ultimately going to be. And I've made a commitment to myself in this season that I will be honest, that I won't just have people around, that I will be okay with being on my own. That if it's not this, that's it. If it's not this connection, then it's good. I'm good with it leaving. I'm not going to fight it. I am big about letting people know, like not just ghosting and taking the easy way out, but saying, hey, this doesn't work for me. This is how I feel, blah, blah, blah. And out of a lot of respect, because they're great people. They're great guys. Doesn't mean just because they're good, don't mean they're good for me. Right. So they may be great for somebody else. They're just not my person. And I've become okay with, I'm good being by myself. I've gotten so good with being by myself. This might be a bad thing, but so good with being by myself that I'm not like gonna try to fit somebody into my world, because there's times where you do want company. There's times where you do want connection. There's times where you do want something meaningful. I want something meaningful, but I'm not willing to just let or fit somebody into my world or make somebody fit because I want somebody. I am like, no. There's certain things in my mind that have to be there. Just period. And I was sitting in church, and God said to me, okay, if it's not this connection, it's going to be greater. And I was like, wait, what, God? He said, why are you worried about where you'll end up in the future? If it ain't this, it's going to be greater. If it wasn't that, it's going to be greater. And I'm like, God. And I remember just sitting there, y'all. I'm the rest of the Sunday, I had to write it down. I had to write it somewhere, because my spirit wasn't going to be settled until I wrote it down. And so I wrote down what I felt in my spirit. And it was like, I wrote it out, and I said, God, what is this? Is this what you're saying? Is this what you're telling me? And if it is, give me peace. And either way, and God was just, as soon as I wrote out was what was put into my spirit, y'all, I had peace. I haven't thought about it again. Peace. I was like, okay, God, I see what that was you. Because sometimes, y'all, because we don't see better than where we are right now, or we don't see better than what we've already had, we get into a mindset of thinking that it's never going to happen and we might as well just make it work. That's why people go back to exes. For real, because you're in the single season and you're like, oh, well, I don't really see, I've been out here for, there'd be people that be out here for 3 months. Oh, I haven't really seen nobody better. Let me go back to where I was because it was cool. And sometimes maybe y'all do need to go back to where you came from. But other people, that is not an option, not even close to it, right? But a lot of people, because they're impatient with the process or they lack faith, they're like, well, okay, I only see X, Y, and Z. What I was in was better than X, Y, and Z. So I'm just going to go backwards. And I'm in the space of my life, family. And, this is where I am. I can't speak for you guys. But the Bible says, forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Do you not perceive it? I'm making a way in the wilderness. I'm making streams in the desert. I've started to say to myself, okay, God is not asking me to dwell on, he's not making me think about Egypt. Yeah, there might be some consistency about Egypt, but Egypt overall was a bad experience. He didn't take me out of Egypt for me to go back to Egypt, right? He took me out of Egypt to go to the Promised Land, and there was a process to the Promised Land. But there was still a promise. There was still a promised land. And what happens, family, is that we get so caught up in what we see that we just forget what God told us. We forget that God has delivered us from certain things. We just say, oh, well, I don't see anything better. And I like being comfortable. I like comfort so much. And I like what people think about me so much that I'm just going to stay right where I'm at. Even though I know God isn't there, and I know that God isn't not leading me to be in this particular situation, because if we test it against the fruits of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, patience, goodness, kindness, faithfulness, and self-control, if it's not any of those things, it does not have the fruits of the Spirit, and therefore it's not from God. Hello. And if it has chaos and confusion, it's not from God. Hello. But some of us know, I know this ain't who God has for me, but because this is all I know, or this is because it's what I'm comfortable with, or because really, because we're addicted to comfort in today's society. And God is saying, no, in this season, you're going to have to get uncomfortable. You're going to have to divorce this comfort zone of you, because this comfort zone that you like to be in, because in order for you to get what you've been praying for, in order for you to get into the rooms, into the environments, into the jobs, and into the relationships that you desire, you're going to have to get out of here, because this is only keeping you from purpose. And so when God told me yesterday in the service, I'm sitting here like, what? He's like, why are you worried? If it ain't this, is better. If it wasn't that, it's better. Because you serve a God that does exceedingly abundantly above all that we could ever ask, think, or imagine. We also serve a God that says, eyes haven't seen, ears haven't heard, and minds can't even imagine all that God has planned for you. So if you're standing on my promises, you know that I don't do inferior. That everything I do is exceedingly abundantly above all. So if you're thinking from a mindset that is, oh, I don't see it, so I don't believe it, that's earthly. That's earthly wisdom. That's not living in kingdom mentality. Kingdom mindset is, even if I don't see it, I know that God is simultaneously working in the seen and the unseen. And if he's not seen, it's intentional. When he is seen, it's intentional. That God is always working. He never stops. He don't sleep. So when I heard that, for whatever reason, y'all, when it dropped into my spirit, I was conflicted, because there's a part of me, ooh, this is getting deep. There's a part of me that wanted control. Control over what, Sam? Control over the timing. God, when? You saying this, but when? But when? But when? And it's like, I felt so deep in my spirit. So it's not about if I'm gonna do it. It's only about when. That's your only question. Now you can try to make something happen now and it's not for me, and then you're miserable, or you're feeling like you don't have the capacity or the ability to do it, or you can wait on me and you can be excited about something because I know what you like more than you know what you like. That I created those desires before you were even born. So everything that you desire, I know you want that. And if I give you this picture, and he gave me a picture in my mind, he's like, if it's that, wouldn't that be worth waiting for than to settle with what you see right now? And I say, you know what, God, you're right. Sometimes, God, you be making a lot of sense. That if whatever pictures in your mind right now, family, whether it's a mate or a house or a car or a job, whatever that may be for you, if God said to you, listen, what I have for you is greater. It's either that or greater. And you're like, well, you know what, God, I think I can do it better on my own. Let me just take the pen and I'm just going to do my own thing. I'm just going to try to make these calls. I'm going to submit these resumes. I'm going to force something to fit that doesn't fit because I'm impatient. That's what it came down to. It was me dealing with me because I'm impatient. And I started thinking to myself, like, you know what, God, it actually makes more sense doing it your way because I did it my way and I have failed. I did my own choosing and I failed. So maybe the wisest choice for me to do in this season is to wait on you. Wait on when you decide you want to show up, because when you decide to show up, it's the right time. Always has been, always will be. That when you decide to bring me to the promised land, it's always going to be greater than anything that I could have thought about for myself. Because there's people that we saw in the Bible, family, that did not want to they stayed in the wilderness because they got comfortable in the wilderness. They didn't have the endurance. They didn't have the faith to wait on the promised land. They just were like, okay, we've been out here for a while. We just going to settle right here. We going to settle in the wilderness. Right here in this little desert. We good. We good. We going to make the best of this little desert. And that's fine. But there was a group of people that said, no, we want promised land. And that was not everybody that left Egypt. That was like a generation after. Only a few people from the original generation actually made it to the promised land, actually obtained the promise. And the reason why they were able to obtain the promise was because they had faith. They saw it from a God mindset, not an earthly mindset. Because there was people that went to go see the promised land. There was I think it was 12 because of 12 tribes of Israel. And they went and what they saw, 9 of them reported or 10 of them reported, because I know only 2 reported that they saw grapes and everything that God flowing with milk and honey. They saw all that. They saw all the good stuff. And then the rest of the people were like, no, we saw giants. We saw huge people and we can't take them out. I mean, they're inhabiting that thing. And we look like grasshoppers to them. We look like grasshoppers to them. I look like a grasshopper and they saw me as a grasshopper when they had no conversation with the people to know whether or not they look like grasshoppers to them. Anyway, your perception is your reality. So they end up not making it to the promised land because it was a faith factor. 2 people saw opportunity. 2 people saw God's promise. 2 people said, okay, if God brought me here, God gonna bring me through this thing. That if God said to go to this land and you will overtake it, well, I trust God. And there's people, most people, and that's today's world. Most people saying, no, well, you know what? I don't see it. So I'm gonna settle right here right here. And I find that a lot of people, even when it comes to relationships, because I do a lot of relationship talks, I find that people, they say they waiting on God, but they not. What do you mean, Sam? I've seen YouTube videos of different people, and they're like, "Oh, I've been waiting for. I'm 40. I'm this. I'm that." And they're talking about their ages, and they've been waiting on God. They've been waiting on God, and they'll tell the story, and it's like, "No, you're not." Some of y'all are. I'm not saying that everybody isn't, but there's people that have made the fact that they've created an image, their image of what it would look like, that they're not open to any other image that God has for them. That maybe, just maybe, what you think is going to look like, it ain't going to look like that. Family, there was a situation a couple years ago where somebody reached out to me, and I'm like, God, I don't know if this is it. This ain't it. I don't think this is it. Because I had said years back, I would never, this can't be. Because I said years ago, that can't be. And that situation ended up being like crazy to me, mind blowing. But if I had just married what I thought it would look like, or married what it would, and when I'm saying married, I mean committed to the image that I had in my mind, or committed to what it's supposed to look like based upon my earthly understanding, I would miss a whole lot of things. A lot of people, they're so hooked up on what they think it's supposed to look like, they can't even see God. You're not God. You don't know. And that's why I've become more open about getting to know different kinds of people, because you never know. God, it may not be dressed up in the box that you think it would, but I do know that God is going to create a desire. That's what I've learned in all, y'all, in everything that I've done in my life, in this journey that you're watching now. There was a desire that was put in me to make me want to do certain things. Like, for example, with the YouTube, there was a desire that was put inside of me. Right? I was like, I want to get to understand this YouTube machine. I want to understand, what do I need to create, and what do I need to do, and how do I need to do it, and how do I need to title. Like, there was a desire to learn about it because there was a desire for me to create it. I didn't have that desire prior to December of 2020. Was it 2022? I had no desire for it. I think it's 2022. Y'all, I don't remember. I think it's December 2022. Yeah, I think it's December 2022. Because it's what I'm on my second year. Yeah, so yes, December 22. I was like, I want to learn this. I want to get to know this. So I always think that God is going to create a desire for something. He's going to create it. He's going to, if it's a job, if it's recently, y'all, being real, I haven't wanted a dog at all. I'm be honest with you, I have not. I'm like, I don't want a dog. I don't. My baby want a puppy so bad. She asks me for a puppy all the time. I'm like, I don't know if I want the responsibility. I don't know. And just out of nowhere, y'all, the desire came. And guess what? Opportunities came with that desire. And there were some opportunities that y'all looked like gold, but wasn't. And then there were opportunities that came that were exactly what we needed. And I felt it. I felt the desire. So I feel like God makes us attracted to the outcome. But what happens is we either force something to fit that we don't have desire for. We're trying to create a desire because that's what we see. So we're trying to make the best of what we see versus waiting on God for exactly what you desire. Because once I waited on God for what I desired, even when it came to the puppy, because somebody offered me a free puppy. But when I went, I had no desire. And there was a part of me is like, Sam, it's a free puppy. I mean, how can you say no to free? But when I went, y'all, I did not feel right. I was calling my friends like, am I crazy? Like, and they're like, yeah, you're crazy. Like, to walk away from a free puppy, what are you doing? But it did not sit right with my spirit. I had no desire. I left that place like, when I saw it, I'm like, I don't want a dog from here. Like, there was no desire there. But there was a desire for a puppy. It just wasn't from there. Even though that was what looked like gold to me, because at that point, it was like, it's a free dog. But I walked in and I knew that God wasn't in that, because I was toiling with myself. It was chaotic. I was like, okay, God, I'll wait on you. Let me see something else. And I kept trying. Little things would happen. I would get in conversations and I thought about offering people different things. And I thought it was going to look a certain way. But God was like, okay, be open to my plan. Be open. And I was open. I went to, different places. I looked at different things. I was like, okay, well, if it doesn't work out quite this way, the way I would ideally want it, it's still going to work out in a way that I have a desire for, right? I hope I'm making sense, y'all. And I feel like I'm not. But my whole point is that when you're working with God, it's not that God is not going to put you in a situation where you don't desire something. He's not going to put you with somebody that you're not attracted to. He's not going to put you in a job that you don't ultimately find your purpose in. Like, God is not that type of God. He created you. He knows what is best for you. And what happens is that we get into a mindset that we don't want to take a risk and trust God. This is bringing it back all the way to the beginning. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego did not know. Ooh, stop. Sam. Oh my goodness. Okay, I just had to stand up. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego did not know whether God was going to show up or not. They just knew the character of the God that they served. And they stood on that character, even when their life was on the line, and they didn't know if they were going to live after making that decision. My point to you today is that some of you guys are sitting in situations, trying to force situations, trying to keep situations that you know ain't God. But because you're not willing to take a risk, because you're not willing to trust the character of the God that we serve, because you read these verses and you're not really personalizing them or internalizing them to understand that if God brought you to, oh gosh, if God gave you desire, if God, the God that knew the inner workings of who you are fearfully and wonderfully and strategically and intentionally made. If that same God who gave you those desires and created you that way, you don't think he's going to see it through? So you think you're just going to be the only one that has the desires that you have within your heart, and he don't let them go, and he don't let them grow. The only reason why they don't grow, and the only reason why they say the place with the most dreams, the place with the most dreams and ideas are graveyards. Why is that, Sam? Because people live their lives and they opt for comfort. Oh, well, this is okay. It's good enough. I mean, I'm kind of happy. I'm happy on Wednesdays. I'm happy on Fridays. Do you think that that's the kind of life that God created you to have? Some of y'all are in relationships, and I'm not talking about marriages, but y'all are in relationships, dating. You don't feel that attraction, that desire. You don't feel that. You're like, oh, okay, well, it's a good guy. It's good enough, you know. It's good. Good man, good this, good that. He's consistent. He wants to be with me, so I'm going to make this thing work. But there's not a desire. Or it's a good girl. She's a good girl. She goes to this church. She does this, that, and third. But there's not that attraction that like, okay, like this is what I want to do. This is where I'm at with it with her. It's like, well, she's good enough. I really want a relationship, and she's good for the moment. And she wants what I want right now. So I'm gonna allow her to be in my space because it's good enough. When we make those decisions, family, we are deciding to settle in the wilderness. And God tests us in our ability to say no to things that we know are not him. The problem is that we get impatient. The problem is that we're so consumed and committed to what we want and what it's supposed to look like that we don't leave room for God. We don't leave room for the intentions God has for us or the dreams that God has for us. God gave you that dream. God gave you that attraction. God gave you that desire. And we can opt out of the will of God because of ego, because of earthly wisdom. Because we're like, oh, okay, we're where we are right now. I'm just going to make this work. I'm going to ride this till the wheels fall off, even though my desire is this. And God's going to let you do it. God will let you live on whatever level you settle for. He will let you live there. You want to settle in that relationship, he'll let you do it. You want to settle in that job, he'll let you do it. You want to settle in any aspect and facet of your life, he will let you do it. But there's got to be an even if he doesn't type of faith. It's got to be that type of faith that gets you into purpose. It's that type of faith that gets you into the relationship you've always desired. It's that type of faith that gets you into the rooms and the places you were designed and created to be in. Even if he doesn't show up, even if he doesn't vindicate me the way I want to be vindicated, even if he doesn't, I'm going to stand on his principles. And I've had people laugh at me over the years, family, because of the way I've handled this situation in my own life. Oh, Sam, do this. Sam, say that. Sam, this. Sam, that. Do this, do that. I have people call me, everything like that. And they're like, well, I hope your God show up. He taking a lot of time. You know, you say he coming. I don't see him. And I have had this, even if he doesn't, I'm going to stand on it. I'm going to stand on his principles. I'm going to make him proud with what I do. Because even if he doesn't, I trust him. That even if he doesn't show up the way I want him to, or when I want him to, or how I want him to, I believe him. I trust him. And maybe I'm not the conventional person that you would normally think that's this spiritually minded. But but God knows I done been through some things. I done seen a lot. And I trust him. I've seen him show up over and over again. And family, I am not settling in the wilderness. I'm not settling with what I see. I'm not settling with just this. I in a world that tells you to settle, in a world that tells you, oh, you can't get that, you're this, or you're that, or you can't do that because you're here, you're from here, you do this. I'm a girl. Yeah, I'm a brown girl from New Jersey. I lived in a trailer park. I then raised up in Gwinnett County, right? Shout out to Gwinnett County. I've been homeless. I've experienced a lot of different types of trauma. I shouldn't be where I'm at today. Should nobody be on here listening to me today? I'm rough around the edges. I'm everything that I am. I am. I own it. There's a lot of work that God has had to do within me. So I've seen God. I've been sick in the hospital and not knowing if I'm going to look anything like I've seen my physical appearance change overnight. It was like, okay, God, even if you don't, even if you don't, and I've seen him redeem me and I've seen him heal me, and it wasn't as fast as I wanted to in that moment. But y'all, if you look at my skin, you don't even see the scars from what happened to me. You don't see it. It used to be on my face and my hands. Or I used to have to wear gloves to go to school because there still wasn't enough skin on them for me to be able to write and for people to see it as normal. I have seen God. I've seen him. And so I'm encouraging somebody today, and I'm sorry I'm emotional, to have that even if he doesn't show up, even if he isn't on time, I'm going to take the risk anyway. I'm a bet on God. I'm a bet on God. I'm tired of betting on me. I'm tired of settling in the wilderness when God built a promised land for me. That because of my own control issues and because I don't see it right now, that I'm staying in this place when I don't realize that I'm choosing me. It's very clear. It's either his way or your way. And as long as you keep choosing your way is what you're going to get. Moses didn't have any assurance when he left where he was at. He didn't have no assurance. He didn't know what that road was going to be like. But he saw a burning bush. That burning bush told him to do something. He had a moment where he's like, listen, I don't talk that well. I stutter. God sent him Aaron, and he went. And he led Israel. Man who was rejected by that same country became the leader of it. Rejected, shunned, ran away, came back, became the leader. Led them for many, many years until his death. They even had to hide the body of Moses. You'll see that there was an argument in the Bible with angels. And they hid the body because they felt like if they knew where Moses was buried, that they would worship his body. And they didn't want that. They didn't want any other idols. Israelites were already struggling with idol worship. They didn't want to have a whole nother idol that they could be consumed by besides the living God. I say all of this to say, family, develop that even if he doesn't type of faith. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego took a real risk. And they were thrown into a very hot furnace. But they survived. They came out. They didn't even smell like smoke. And then you see the king just worshiping, just like what happened. They just didn't know, just like, well, whatever God you serve is the real God. I surrender. My bad. Everybody needs to worship your God, because obviously I have never seen this happen before. He even says the king was talking crazy, y'all, because the king was like, and this is all in Daniel 3, so you can read it. He was like, I would love to see if your God could deliver you from what I'm about to throw you into. And he did. But they had to take a risk. He was talking real crazy. And God knew, listen, you want to talk like that? Okay, throw them into the furnace. See what happens. I'm going to kill your men. But my people that bet on me, I'm a sure thing. It may not look the way you want it to. But family, God is always on time. His way is sovereign. We don't understand it in the moment. We can't conceptualize it. We weren't meant to. He doesn't call us to understand him. He calls us to obey him. It says, lean not into your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will straighten your paths. Y'all, when I inserted God into the situation I was dealing with on Sunday, and I said, instead of me saying, I want this, like, God, is this what you want from me? Is this it? And God said, even if it doesn't, my way is going to be greater. With Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they didn't want to go in that fiery furnace. They're like, what? What? I can only imagine. But the way that God worked it out was greater. That was miraculous. They probably looked at them like demigods after that. Y'all survived a fiery furnace? Oh, y'all different. Y'all different. Y'all built completely different. God has a miraculous plan for our lives. If we allow him the control, if we surrender the control and start taking risks, start exercising that even if he doesn't type of faith. Thank you for spending your time with us on Love, Samantha Lee, the More Than Just Pretty podcast. It's been a privilege to share this space with you, where we celebrate being unapologetically ourselves. I hope today's episode has encouraged you to embrace your own unique beauty and the beauty in others. Don't forget to follow us and join our community on social media. Share your journey and your insights, and let's continue this conversation. And until next time, remember, real beauty starts with you being true to yourself. I love you, family, and I'm going to talk to you soon.